Welcome back. So today I'd like to cover intersecting shapes, some points about line weight, and also begin with shading with Copic markers, with markers. So where to begin? Say we wanted to draw, I'll just start up here. Again, always helps to plan out your shapes. And I like to do that in orthographic view. So there's one there. It's a rectangle intersecting with a cylinder. And I think we can actually get two out of this. So what we'll actually do for the second one is a cylinder with the rectangle cut out of it. So I'll just I'll outline these shapes just so you can see what I mean. So that's in top. And that's the second shape there. So 1 and 2. And I'll go through how to plan these shapes out first, correctly in perspective, and then we can redraw. We can use our plan as an underlay for the second page and redraw them and shade them in with markers. So to start, I'll actually start by, as we've been doing quite a lot lately, start by planning out the cylinder, and now this plan is going to be it's going to look somewhat messy for a little while, just because I want to go through how to properly project and intersect these shapes. So that's not looking quite right at the back there for me. So this sign, I feel like that actually needs to be a little bit higher. That's a bit closer. So again, no, you're not going to get it right every time, first time. So sometimes it just does help to plan. We'll just find the center lines, and then also the points, the tangency points when those lips have to touch. And then if we project those up, you'll get those tangency points at the top as well. So from this point, kind of drawing from your elbow, try and get that motion happening. Drawing your ellipse, and again drawing from the elbow, try and get that motion happening, and drawing the second ellipse, and connect the two there. So that's our cylinder there. It's looking rather messy, but again, as I said, we'll use this as an underlay and tidy it up. From this point, so we have the box around the cylinder, which is important because from this point we can actually plan this rectangle based on this box. So it's looking like we'll just again do it by eye. So say it's about maybe that high off the ground, and what you want to do is just run a line towards your vanishing point from there, and then in the reverse out away from your vanishing point. So what we've actually just drawn there is that line there of the rectangle. And you'll see it meets the center point. Just to make things easier for us, it meets the center point, the tangency of the cylinder, so we can actually cut it off there. From that point, what we can do is we can actually project these. So that's, remember the outside edges that we selected, we can actually project those across to the other outside edges of our rectangle. And again, doing the same, just project some lines out and out there as well. From this point, we can just select, a place to end our rectangle, so just make it somewhere there. And what we've just drawn is actually this outside line here, so that equals that line there. So we actually have that whole face now, and all we have to do is project that face over to the back. So again, add in perspective, and that actually worked out pretty neatly there. Sometimes you might have a bit of an overshoot of those lines, sometimes it's a little bit short and you have to project them forward, but so far that's actually worked out fairly neat. So what we now have is that full the full rectangle, and what we can do, what we need to now work out is where these two intersect. So you need to draw in the ellipses that kind of form the slices of that cylinder. And the way you can do that is you can sort of see we've already got two of the side walls. If we meet them up, we have another slice just there through our cylinder. So I might actually just highlight these in red for you. So that's the top, the bottom, and then we've just created another one just then in this middle. Likewise, the top of that rectangle, we actually have another one coming through here, and all we have to do is connect it at the back. And there you can actually see what you have is you've already got these points where the ellipse has to touch, because we projected them up at the start, and there. And from there you can actually go ahead and draw in. So again, just draw in your ellipse. So there you have kind of your four slices, the top, the bottom, so the two slices, and your rectangle that intersects it. And from this point, this is looking like a proper mess, but I promise you it will make a little bit more sense once I outline it for you with my black marker. So to do this first shape here, what you need is the cylinder outside, this rectangle that comes to that edge there. That's the outer edge of the cylinder. Sometimes it's tough to keep remembering which lines actually correspond with what, so it might just help to outline them. I'm just going to do these ones upside down because it's a bit easier for me to draw them in. And essentially, I don't know if it's that's made it a little bit easier, but it has for me just to sort of see what the line work there for that shape will look like. And now to do that, all we have to do is actually, I'm going to do both at the same time, but I'll just do that intersection, the back there. This one's going to be pretty easy because all we have to do is draw in that ellipse, and then the only new line we have to put in is kind of that back face, which is connecting those two edges. So we can actually use this as an underlay. I might just take that out as well to make it a bit easier for me. So you can sort of see the advantage of using a bleed-proof pad or your bond pads is that you can actually use them and see through the paper to try and neaten up your drawings. And I can already see some of my line work is a little bit off in the bottom sketch, but that's okay, we can fix that up. We can fix that up in this drawing. And again, I'm going to continuously rotate this pad so that it's easier to kind of achieve those strokes that you need to. Oh, slipped away from me there slightly. And now the fun part, I'm going to do these ellipses upside down. So I just moved the, just be careful when you're working with an underlay. Be careful to try not to move it. If you do, just, it's no big deal, realign it and it'll be okay. And here, we'll just start by just trying to there's one ellipse. There's a second one. And there's the third. So again, I just try and just sort of ease my elbow into it and achieve those. Yeah. Try and get those ellipses. Try and make them neat. Don't do too many lines. So right now what we've drawn is actually this shape here. So that's one. That's the combination of them. And then the second one we'll do next to it. I'm going to. So I'll just really lightly pin it in here. I'm going to actually do the subtraction of those shapes from one another. And again, just move it around so that it's comfortable for you to draw. I do apologize, I know this must be a little bit difficult to comprehend watching on video, but again, I just, when you're drawing, you just need to get your hand into a comfortable position, get your arm to a comfortable position. So the top. There's that line. I'm not sure if that's sort of making it a bit easier to see, but what we've done with the marker in the underlay. So now I just want to try and do this one. Oh, pen lid. And lucky last. So, oh. And sometimes if you you don't quite make the end, you can, don't stress too much, you can just sort of put a little mark in there. People's eye will make that connection, or you can just do it later with a thicker line once we go over the outside. So with these, what I'd like to do with the light. So if we can imagine from top down. So say that's our shape from top down. I'm going to create the light source from above and slightly off center. So I'm actually going to like somewhere here, I'd say, somewhere that way. So that's going to be our light source. And because it's from above, the top surfaces will be the lightest still, but then you'll sort of get, these will be your mids and these will be a little bit darker. But because the light source coming from an angle, we won't have anything really too dark here. It'll just be just a little bit lighter. Sorry, a little bit darker. And so I'll just start with these. Whenever I start rendering something, I always start with the lightest color. The lightest color I'm going to use for this is actually just the paper color, but the one after that will be the 0. And what I start with is just by plotting out the sort of the extent of my highlight area. And even though I'm going to put darker colors over these, I just sort of build up a bit of a base with the lighter color. Because you can always go a bit darker, but yeah, can't always go lighter. So I'm going to actually think down the bottom there. I'll actually darken that right up because it's going to get some shadow underneath there. And also this face here, just let that dry so I don't smudge it with my hand. But this face here I'll also do as my 0. So there you go, you've got a bit of a base. I mean, really, if you were, even that already you can sort of see starts to make it pop out a little bit from the page. From that point, I actually am going to use my 2 to start building up on top of that 0. So, I mean, I know I'm gonna, like, this whole face will be a 2. I'll start there in that corner. I'll just blend it out a little bit. Whenever you do rounded objects, it's good to have your 2 colors out, I find, just to be able to blend them a little bit make that transition a little bit smoother between them. So you can sort of see there, I built up the base, but I've actually darkened that up a little tiny bit. And because the light is coming here, so what we'll actually get on this cylinder is you'll get a bit of a highlight area there, which we've got, and then everything that's, if you can imagine from that point there, that will actually be shadowed. Everything that's perpendicular to the light source. And then we can sort of break it up roughly like if we have, say, your 0 and then your 2, and then your 0 and then your 2, and that will sort of, and then, you know, you might probably back here you have your 4, and maybe back here you'll have a 6. So this is your kind of your color gradient. So you want to show that roll of the cylinder because it's not flat, it rolls away from you. So, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to communicate here. Right at the back here, I'll come in with my 2. And then just blend it out a little bit with the 0. And because we've already put the 0 down once, when you double up, it actually creates a darker shade of the same color, which I think works quite well in this case. It creates a nice smooth blend with that. And there we can put, so this whole face will be a 2, so I'm just gonna, again, get the page into a position which I'm comfortable with. And color that face in that way. The only other thing we might do here as well is you can sort of see that the 4 will be just around the corner there, so it's pretty close. I might just kind of allude to that there, just a tad, just to make it look even more. And I'll get the 0 again, just to blend it out, to make it look even rounder. And I'll get the 4 just there as well. Again, the 2. And I think under here as well, it might be nice just to do a little bit of a 4 there, just to show that shadow. Just because, you know, they'll be casting a little bit of shadow down there. So that's our cylinder. I'll leave these white. I mean, you can actually start with the 0 up here. I just sort of thought I'd, you know, save some of my marker ink and use the color of the paper. The only other thing, if the light's coming from here, this back edge might be a little bit darker than the front one there, so I might actually just come back now that the 2 is dry. And I'll just blend that out with the 0. Just darken up that back edge a tad, I think, for a bit more accuracy. I'm gonna leave that one that's quite soaked with ink at the moment before we go into line weight, so I'm just gonna leave that one there and I'll go into this one. So again, we'll try a similar approach. start with kind of outlining your highlight area. And then we can start to kind of fill that out a bit with the 2. Blend that out a little bit. And then back here as well. Again, blend it out a little bit with the 0. And if you work quickly, you'll be able to actually blend the colors pretty well while the ink is still wet on the page. And again, we've got the 4, so I might just allude to it there. Blend that with the 2. And then I might just touch that up with the 0 as well. And here too. Just to really make that look like it's visually curving around. 0. So, sort of see what we've done there with it. Now, what we have on the back face, because our highlight's coming here, this will be somewhat light. It's facing upwards, but it won't be as light as the top. So I'm just going to color that in with my 0. And because that's a 0, that one, I might just make that my mid. So where's my 2? So make that one my 2. And just let that one dry. The thing that you'll notice as well is if the light's coming from, kind of hitting this corner, it will be a little bit darker towards the back. And for that, you can just go over the same color twice. And likewise for this, you'll get a little bit more kind of light pollution in that front corner. So we'll just darken it up a little bit at the back. So that's the basics, I suppose, of shading with cylindrical forms. Now that this one's dry, I can actually go back over it. I usually wouldn't do this in marker, but I think it would sort of outline, for the purpose of this, what I'd like to discuss about different line weights. So when you have a shape like this, you want to show that this rectangle is actually coming out and it's in front, visually it's in front of that cylinder. And the way you do that is by breaking it away from that cylinder with a darker line weight or a thicker line weight. So there you go. And again, just to continue that, you want to outline the rest of it with that same line weight, or with a darker line weight, just so that it pops up off the page as well, so that it doesn't kind of just start, these lines don't just start disappearing off into space. So here again, in this corner, the cylinder is actually in front of that rectangle because the rectangle disappears behind it. So here we actually run that edge down. I'll just do it. Whoa. That way. Sorry to keep flipping the pad on you, but I hope I encourage you to do the same at home. So you can sort of see that pops off the page, and then that cylinder actually pops away from the rectangle. Likewise, we'll do the same for this back corner, and now really neatly for your ellipses. And with this ellipse, you actually only want the back face because you don't need to thicken up that front one. That front one is connected, they're connected, so the only thing that you want to pop off the page is that back ellipse there. Likewise with these, you can do the same. So here, try and get that off the page, and you'll see the front lip here is actually in front of that back surface. So we want to show that that pops off. And likewise with this. Then you've got this back line. And lucky last. So in terms of line weight, what you'll see is everywhere where a shape comes in front of the thing behind it, I've actually thickened up that line weight. And then also the outside of the object, I've thickened it up. And again, I'd like to stress that I usually wouldn't do this in marker. You could actually, a lot of the time it's actually neat to just get away with doing it with your pen and going over it, and then leaving these, say, as a single pen stroke, and then maybe going over it 2 or 3 times with your pen for the other strokes. But for the sake of this demo, I really want to emphasize which lines we would you'd need to darken up. So for this, I did it with the marker. But there you have 2 shapes. One. So here we go. We've got this one as the intersected, and then this one as the cutaway. And there they are, both rendered up.